Darren Jones MP, congratulations on your election victory.
Thanks very much.
So, first question I want to ask you, I understand one of your first jobs in your career was working for the NHS. And do you think there's any future for the NHS kind of bringing in cooperative reforms and making NHS trusts cooperatives, and can that work well with it still being a national service?
Yes, I think is the short answer. I'm a member of the Cooperative Party. I'm not a Labour Cooperative MP, but I've supported the cooperative movement for many years. And I like the idea of localised decision-making based on patient needs. But what I don't like the idea of is privatisation and market competition in the health service. I never buy the argument that just because it's not private sector doesn't mean that you can't innovate and increase efficiencies. And I think the cooperative model has something to play in making that right, so there's not just a Whitehall-led NHS across the country.
Okay, so do you think the government is right to demand backdoor entry to private organisations using technology such as Apple, WhatsApp, Facebook? And do you think this type of backdoor access is viable given the type of encryption is used for everyday actions such as internet banking?
So encryption is going to be one of the big debates in this Parliament, not least because of the anti-terrorism and national policing concerns. The Secret Services have said publicly that they have the highest level of threats they've had to deal with for a long time. And as we've known from previous cases, these criminal players use encrypted communications in order to speak with each other. But there are legitimate privacy concerns around the creation of backdoors in encryption services, and the technology companies will say, look, if you create the backdoor, people will be able to get in it. It's not just for policing, but also the bad guys will get access as well. So we've got to have that debate in Parliament. We've got to get the balance right between protecting people's civil liberties and privacy, but also ensuring we have the tools to be able to stop awful criminal activity happening. What I don't buy, however, is the Home Secretary's argument, Amber Rudd, where she said she didn't need to understand encryption in order to legislate about encryption. I think that's wrong, and we need to have the conversation with experts on both sides of the arguments to get this right for the country.
Given that the UK has such dire levels of productivity, do you think we could actually use Brexit, and given the lower value of sterling, as a stepping stone to become a stronger centre of manufacturing and innovation of renewable technologies, for example, and exporting them worldwide?
I mean, in Bristol North West, we have a lot of advanced manufacturing jobs at places like Airbus and GKN and Rolls-Royce and the National Composite Centre and lots of energy companies as well. I would love to see more manufacturing jobs in my constituency. We've also got to secure the existing ones. We've got a lot of older people now who have the skills, who are nearing retirement and aren't being replaced with good quality, proper apprenticeships. And as we've seen in the aerospace industry, and perhaps in the car vehicle industry as well, we seem to be losing investment because of Brexit. So my concern around Brexit is that we will lose the investment we need to create those manufacturing jobs in the future. And my constituency was a majority Remain. I'm a very openly pro-European politician, but I've always said to my constituents that my first job is to protect their jobs, and that's keenly linked to manufacturing and advanced manufacturing and engineering in Bristol.
More broadly, what are the challenges you think that AI will bring to political economy, and in particular the labour movement?
So artificial intelligence, or more broadly the fourth industrial revolution, is one of the very significant macro political issues of our time. And we're not debating it properly here in Parliament. It's something that I will push for as long as I'm an MP. Now, the Conservatives have started that conversation better than we have on the Labour Party side, but the problem is that the Conservatives talk about how artificial intelligence and robotics and the cloud and continuous connectivity will unlock our productivity problem in the economy by using robotics and automating processes in businesses and the like. But they never talk about the consequences for workers or our communities or the future of work. And we need to be having that conversation on the Labour side. In the automated vehicles debate in the House of Commons last week, I made that point that the government was legislating to pave the way for driverless vehicles, but it didn't say anything about how it would help all those drivers who lose their jobs, stay in work or transition into new work. We need to be having those debates now, not after millions of people lose their jobs.
Okay, I think I'm right in saying that at the general election, our lead over the Tories amongst, I think, C2, or there's a group of key working class voters where our lead was only 4%. So given that, what can the Labour Party do to reconnect with our working class voter base? Obviously that would be critical in terms of winning the next general election.
It's absolutely critical that we connect not just with our working class base, but also with people right across the political spectrum. I won as a consequence of liberal, more affluent, highly educated voters voting for me because of Europe and my European position, but also because of our anti-austerity politics position, which was great. We had lots of young people voting as well. But there's no denying that we lost working class votes to the Tories. I remember on polling day speaking to a constituent who was a trade union shop steward who was voting for Theresa May because he felt that she represented the working class better than the Labour Party. I mean, it's obscene. It doesn't make any logical sense to people like me, but to voters, and obviously that's what matters most, they felt that we weren't representing them. And we saw at this election winning in seats like Bristol West, with my colleague Sangam Debonair, had a 38,000 majority in a very metropolitan urban environment, but we lost traditional Labour working class seats to the Tories. We don't fully understand that, and we've got to do much more work as a party to fix it, but it's imperative that we are always anchored in our founding causes as a Labour Party, and we can't become just a party of the kind of urban metropolitan elite, as much as we need to represent them as well as our working classes.
Darren Jones MP, thank you very much indeed.
No problem.